Hi there. I've been a bit busy, and I really didn't feel like I had too much to say recently. But I watched a video by Michael Rupert today, and he talks about peak oil, and he says some pretty interesting things. And one of them really struck me, and that is that there's an economist in Holland, Mr. Maarten van Maurik, who did an analysis early in 2000 and something. And he has said in meetings that he concludes that it might not be profitable to respond to peak oil. What he basically is saying is that it might not be profitable to signal that it exists and to be forced, of course, to do something else or respond or prepare a transition. And that is such an incredible statement to make, because it might explain something else, and it might uncover a knowledge that is in the industry that is completely that you can completely justify, but that is completely irresponsible in regard to human life. Just a moment. So what happened is that industry knew already in the 50s that climate change was happening. The models were proven, and I know that because there's a record made by General Electric on which a professor from Harvard or somewhere at MIT explains exactly why burning coal cannot be sustainable, and that it causes a 2 degrees centigrade increase in global temperatures every century, and that's been proven by the record up until now. And then he means 1957. And we also know that Ronald Reagan suppressed the report of the Jasons, which I thought until a few months ago was the most let's say modern conclusion of that. But in hindsight, it's not. The Jasons basically could dig up the report of this professor and try and kind of validate it, and they came up with exactly the same conclusion. Mr. Ronald Reagan, it's going to be 2 degrees centigrade each century. It's going to be unsustainable, and we are causing it. Humanity is causing it. And Reagan, of course, appointed another person as the director of the Jasons, and he made a report that said that technology would find a solution. Ingenuity. This is like, we will put you in some trap, but you will be ingenious enough, so it's not dangerous when we do it. No. We'll just kick you into a maze, and you're probably smart enough to get out. That's why it's not irresponsible for us to do that. We can endanger you because we can assume that you're smart enough to rescue yourself. But now, what happens is with this remark by Rupert Murdoch, you have to start suspecting general pre-knowledge in the industry, the oil industry, but in the industry in general, and of course in the banking sector, of what is happening with climate change and of the results of course, peak oil. And if you do that, and you walk back to where they started to develop these credit default swaps and these all these financial instruments that are meant to profit from destruction and from the demolishment and deconstruction of our economies as we know it. I think you can simply suspect these instruments to have been made especially and purposely to function as a means of profit in these times that we are in right now. And that's so what the strategy has been then is to, first of all, you deny peak oil, and that has happened, even at the COP meeting in Copenhagen last year. The minimum number of years that we can go on as we are doing now is 40 in the quiz that they had. And of course on Dutch television every day you still see people saying that there's no problem with oil supply. Of course there is, because with the new oil that we're finding that's heralded, you can only last for 60 days more. It's not working. So they denied that because they decided that it would not be profitable to cut back on oil production, or to start rationing it, or to start specifically targeting the revenues of it or its use for building alternative energy sources. They just didn't want to do it. They want to make money right now. So that's one thing. And on the other thing, and we're talking about the banks that ultimately are behind this. They are people that simply look at money and how much money they have and where it flows and try to maximize that. like robots, basically, apparently without any moral or ethical consideration. And on the other hand, they built a structure that could profit from whatever is a result of this of this peak oil thing, peak credit thing. Of course, credit is built on, for large part, on future revenues, and one of the biggest future revenues, or something that's basically is money, is oil. So, and that's a very devious scenario that they basically knew since the 80s what was going to happen, and they basically prepared and put everything in place to have that and profit of it. And you have to conclude that the baby booming generation is one big cannibalistic generation, and they don't really care about each other at all. And you can see that with people that have pensions, where of course, not understanding the new economics of renewables, which means that everything will be free as long as you have the energy sources. Politicians and everybody is trying to impose austerity on whatever is moving. They don't see that that's exactly what you don't want to do. And actually, austerity is what you try to impose on countries if you don't want them to participate or compete for oil. So if the IMF imposes austerity measures on Europe, then it's basically trying to kill it off economically. So its oil consumption goes down and there's more oil to be spent or used in the US. Not to any benefit. I think that's the saddest thing about the baby boomer generation, is that they were humans and they didn't leave the world in better shape. Extremely the opposite. So if you see pensioners that have been CEOs or whatever, and they're sitting on their chairs really contently in the sun, it's really cruel to deny them that pleasure. But they should feel bad about it, because they basically they are responsible for the situation that the next generation is in. The children that they, and I'm kind of speaking from a personal situation, that they seem to covet and cherish in everything, they have destroyed their world. And they knew it, and they didn't go into against it. I think because basically the problem that humans have is that once they are in the comfort zone, they don't want to get out. And they're basically blinded for whatever goes around outside it. That's simply the incapacity of humanity, or humans, to care too much about anything that doesn't really impact their actual situation. And to pretend that they do is a delusion of grandeur. And I've said that in another video. The best thing to do is to deconstruct society to a size and a power level that humans can handle without destroying themselves. But it seems, if you listen to Michael Rupert, that we're not gonna have the chance. Basically, gonna live in chaos for a good number of years, and afterwards, let's hope that we can build a society based on alternative energy. That really cheers me up today. But thanks for listening.